Hello everyone, welcome to GSS Core. This is Ajay Shah, and today in our series of pathways, we have two important speakers. The first is Mr. Ashutosh Kulkarni, who has secured All India rank 44 in UPSC 2019. And then we have Piyush Kumar sir, who is an expert faculty in GSS Core for history optional. Welcome Piyush sir, welcome Ashutosh to GSS Core.
Thank you, Ajay ji.
Thank you.
Fine. So Ashutosh, first of all, congratulations from the team of GSS Core.
Thank you very much.
So Ashutosh, the first question to you: whenever we have to decide the optional subject, what are the factors that has to be taken into account before deciding any optional?
There are 2-3 things. First of all, there should be a general liking. You should have some natural inclination towards that optional, because the study of optional is almost of a post-graduation level. So unless you have some very good inclination towards that subject, it becomes difficult to study. Second thing is, in terms we call it the efficiency, the input is to output ratio. How much am I giving and am I getting the desirable output? So in that optional, how much is the syllabus? Is that possible to be studied in 6-7 months? And how much input should I give so that I can get a desired output of 300 plus marks? And the third and the most important is the general survey of the questions that are asked, the general marking pattern for that optional, and the coaching that is available everywhere. Because many times the optional may be very good, but it may be so obscure that nobody be able to guide you. So these 2-3 factors are important.
Okay, fine. Piyush sir, there is a general apprehension among the students that history is an optional subject which is quite bulky, quite complicated, and a lot of facts has to be memorized in the history. Can you please answer this, sir?
Yeah, that's very true. I think when it comes to this particular option, before I begin, first I want to congratulate Ashutosh. Like, I'm so happy for him that he secured rank 44 in this attempt. So,
Thank you,
of course, it is just
Thank
because
you.
of his efforts and hard work that he secured rank 44. And yes, Ashutosh started raising some of the points that your interest is very important. Like, of course, every subject that you have been choosing, like, of course, as an optional paper, your interest, matters a lot. When it comes to history, there is a great misconception that, this subject is very bulky and vast. So I think, but in fact, I prefer to say that this is a misconception. The reason lying in that, sometimes what happens, people are not able to understand the real nature of the subject. This subject is not about facts and other things, because if you're considering the subjects with this respective facts and the kind of bulkiness which is there, in that case definitely it seems to be kind of problematic. It is all about concepts. It's all about understanding the continuity and changes in different phases. And when you have been, we're having a different approach towards the subjects. In that case, definitely it seems, it doesn't seem bulky. Rather, it becomes more interesting because, because the way you start liking the subjects in order to understand the continuity and changes. So that somehow helps the students to understand it. And the second thing I'll also prefer to discuss that what happens in history optional syllabus, each and every minute topics have been mentioned in the syllabus. That somehow helps the students also, because now they're very clear what are the topics they need to prepare. But then in the other optional paper, like they have just given the topic, what are the subtopics which are missing, right? So somehow it seems bulky, but in practicality, it is not bulky. It's a misconception.
Okay, thank you. Ashutosh, there is some disturbance coming from your side. What is that?
Is it? So I'll just check. Probably some sound from background.
Yeah, some sound is continuously coming from your side.
I think it's
I've just muted and unmuted.
Yeah.
Or maybe that can be an echo. I don't know.
Yeah. Whenever some other speakers are speaking, then we should mute our mic. Fine. Ashutosh, there is one more question among the students. It is an apprehension that history is a syllabus which has no syllabus. Fine, it is boundaryless. History is something which starts somewhere, ends somewhere. So, what's your take on this? Did you find this subject as a subject in which we can confine the syllabus of the option?
This has to be accepted that the syllabus is big, no doubt about it. But the biggest advantage, as Piyush sir was talking about, is I'll add one more to that. It is chronological stuff. Like there is the biggest thing that history has eased us is that you have to remember everything in chronology. So everything is given to you in chronology. So it becomes easy to place things in our brain also. Ultimately, if it's a huge subject, it's a question of memory. But in memory, if I'm remembering things based randomly, it becomes difficult. Like if I'm studying economics, I can study banking, then I can study inflation, then I can study international organizations. In history, the biggest advantage is that everything is fed to you in chronology. So it becomes very, very easy to remember stuff, even if it is large in number. So my only suggestion is that the candidate should not be intimidated by the high number of syllabus. There may be facts, correct. There may be too much to remember, correct. But it has to be remembered in chronology, and there is fixedness to the entire syllabus. There is nothing, no surprises. Like 2 years ago, the geography optional was killed like anything. But because it was totally surprising, there was nothing candidates could expect at all. In history, there is no surprises. If you check the 4 5 years papers that have there in the last 4 5 years, there is predictability, general predictability. So this becomes the biggest advantage despite having a big syllabus.
Okay, fine. Ashutosh, can you just tell me one thing, that is, can we finish the entire option of history only by reading standard books, or can it be finished without coaching? Or coaching is something which is mandatory in finishing the option of history?
Coaching in a way can be necessary depending upon the understanding of the candidate. The advantage of history is that it is very easy to understand. There is nothing too much exceptionally beyond our control or very, very conceptual things in the history. But if the candidate does wish to, he can take the coaching. But I would suggest that if say other optionals require about 6 months to complete, then an entire reading of the standard books, history may require maybe about 8 months. So there is a lot of time that is definitely required. So I would definitely encourage the candidates to start early to ensure that things don't mess up at the last.
Okay, thank you. Piyush, sir, tell me one thing. If someone has to join the option of history, say after 6 months, so what he should do now to develop a kind of foundation or a kind of bedrock to prepare for this option of history?
Well, one thing, as I told you, Ajay, that what happens now, like there is a great misconception regarding history that it's, am I audible?
Sir, little louder, sir. Little louder.
Okay, ma'am. Okay, now am I audible? Is it okay now?
Yes, sir. Please speak.
Right. So as I told you that there is a misconception that it is full of facts and figures, like, and that's the real problem with this particular optional paper. So basically, when it comes to the early understanding of the subject, so first thing, like people should start believing in this idea from the beginning itself, that it is all about understanding the concepts. And one point that Ashutosh highlighted just now, that it is all about understanding the thing in a chronology. That's really true. And in fact, it helps students to understand it, in a chronological order. So when it comes to early understanding, I think that they must begin with the old NCERTs, where still I do not find that any book, has been written so far, which is trying to emphasize a lot on the understanding of the subjects. So NCERTs, the old NCERTs are the best stuff to understand for the to understand the subjects, at least for the beginners, right? So they all should start from the old NCERTs only. All the three paths, right? Ancient, medieval, and modern.
Okay, fine. Ashutosh, you are yourself a mechanical engineer, and we have seen that majority of the people here are from mechanical or engineering background. So how did you find the subject when you jumped directly from the stream of technical to such a stream of history? What was your experience in that?
Sir, the biggest advantage of having a subject in social sciences is that it is very quite easy to understand, because once you have done a technical subject like engineering, like after like solving triple integration in mathematics, history or any social science subjects are relatively easy to understand. So not just history, but even sociology or anthropology or such kind of subjects, a candidate for engineering is very easily able to grasp these subjects. The change is a little bit different. The change is that in engineering, it is very, very to the point, because it is with mathematical precision. In any social science subject, since it is humans and human emotions involved, you will have so many angles to the same event. There is a lot of thinking that has to be done about various perspectives to the same event. So even in history, we have social history, political history, religious history, there is art and culture. So there is the same event or the same thing, but that it is studied with so many angles. So that is the change of thought process that maybe an engineer has to bring with himself. But apart from that, learning history for an engineer is quite easy.
Okay, fine. So learning history is quite easy from someone who is from technical background. Yeah, Ashutosh, tell me one thing. Did you feel that there is any spillover effect of history on other subjects of GS or essay and all? Because I have seen that the people who are from political science or people who are in sociology, they say that there is a spillover effect on the other subjects of GS. So did you feel that?
There is definitely a spillover effect. In GS1, undoubtedly optional students are in biggest advantage because those 2-3 questions, critical questions of either art and culture or that one question of world history, which often comes out of the blue, but many a times the optional students have some idea of what things are in that. So in GS1, for at least 2 to 3 questions, there is a decisive advantage. For essay, there is an advantage because I personally had this thing since this was my fourth try. I've written so many essays for so many years. I could sense that every time my introduction or some tidbit in that essay has some link to history, and that actually adds on to some there is some value addition to that essay. Same goes in GS4. There was I guess it was an essay, and it was something about righteousness and uprightness and everything. I quoted some instance from the Mahabharata directly. Now that became so good, and in one essay I quoted Roman Empire and Caesar, and it adds to your entire thing because it's something totally different than what other candidates are going to write. And these years, the biggest advantage is in the prelims because in art and culture, the questions are so odd and so off the track, but sometimes it is the optional students which are at a very decisive advantage, at least for 5 to 6 questions. And in prelims, 5 to 6 questions advantage is a huge advantage these days because people miss out by barely 1 mark. So in at least because what happens is when candidates come to me to ask what should I do for art and culture, I have no words because as an optional student, we are already studying it in so detail that I cannot suggest to them any source. So for history optional, the decisive advantage is in prelims, essay, and GS1.
Okay, thank you, Ashutosh. Piyush, sir, tell me one thing, that whenever we choose any subject, interest is the prime factor, that we should have interest in that subject. How do a student can decide that he is having interest in history or not? Can someone on the basis of NCERT books of class 6 to 12 can decide that yes, he is having a genuine interest in history, or the history optional is something which is quite bigger than those NCERTs?
That's a very good question, Ajay. And I must tell you that, whenever students are approaching to me that what optional they should opt for, I always used to say one thing, this is, totally your own decision. Because look, this is the, optional paper with what you are going to write your examination. It's all about your career. And that is why you should not ask somebody else that what optional you should, opt for. So what I normally suggest, like initially you start preparing for general studies, right? And when you go for general studies, like in that case, you almost all start studying all the papers. You start studying history, then geography, then economics, right? The social issues and many other things. So like by that time, you start developing certain interest in certain areas, right? So of course, if you have interest in history, in that case, you'll start, developing interest, and then you can think, okay, this is a subject with what I can, spend some more time. I can read it on any time. So this is how you need to decide by your own that yes, I'm comfortable. Well, so this is just one parameter. So of course, if you are having much doubt that what optional you should go for, in that case, these are some things which are very important. But at the same time, I'll suggest one more thing to you, or I'd like to discuss one more thing here, that when it comes to optional paper now, like of course there are certain other trends that also you should notice, that what kind of results you find every year, what is the level of standard questions being asked in the examination, right? To what extent, after reading the NCERTs, just try to see the questions of the optional papers and try to find out, try to, somehow, comprehend that, what kind of adjustment you can make with the subject. Do you feel comfortable, while attempting the questions, these questions after this basic study only? And the third thing I'll say, that what kind of materials are available for this, right? Because if you do have easy material available in forms of coaching material or in forms of book, like, but that you have to make sure that the materials are easily available, and you can shortlist the important one out of them, that your preparation should be easy, right? So these are the criteria that which should be followed before choosing the optional paper.
Okay, fine. Ashutosh, tell me one thing. I'm making one claim that a student of history, he should not study anything in the world history in the GS. He can leave art and culture. He can leave post-independence history. He can leave modern India in the GS paper mains. Is it true? Or he'll have to put some extra effort in that?
It is true. The reason is because generally after the GS papers, hardly after 4 or 5 days, you're going to have an optional paper. So it's generally that you are 1 month prior to the actual mains, you are studying history optional also. So that will actually cover up for art and culture as well as modern as well as world history. It is true. But rather than you asked what extra effort should be put, I am saying the effort should be minimized. So it's opposite. You have to unlearn a few things while the GS papers. because as optional students we tend to go very deep, and most of the times the people who are going to check those papers, they may be generalists. It's not necessary that they may be history graduates, because they have to check the geography and sociology part also in GS1. So I don't know what's their checking methods, but assuming that those people are not history experts specifically, maybe whatever we write, they may go totally tangent to that person. Some dangerous concepts, like if there was monetary anemia in early medieval India, maybe that person just may not understand what's monetary anemia. You have to just say that, okay, there was less minting of currency. So there are certain things which you have to unlearn while writing GS. You have to make the answers simple. Maybe it should not be too loaded with facts, but basic concepts, because that is why it's called general studies, because it is all general in nature. So it's more about unlearning while writing answers rather than doing any extra effort.
Okay, thank you. Piyush sir, tell me one thing. In majority of the optional subjects, we have something called scholars. In sociology, in PubMed, in political science, we have scholars. So when we read any scholars, there are chances of misinterpretation because there are subjective interpretation. So do we have any such chances in the option of history that there might be subjective interpretation of any concept?
Well, I won't say that there is, there are chances for misinterpretation of any topic as such or any issue as such. But yes, in history also you need to learn how to make the balance, because as far as scholars are concerned, of course, history is also one subject that is somehow, that discipline is being run by historians itself, right? So I think history is nothing without historians. So scholars do play a very important role here as well. But I think that chances of misconception or misinterpreting the things, that is not possible here. The only thing which you need to balance here, or you need to you need to keep in mind here, that you need to make the balance out of all the different kind of statements or the arguments which are there. So that is a different way of understanding the thing here. Like, it's, of course, there are no chances of misinterpretation like it happens in the other optional papers or the scholars. Basically, it comes to the theory parts. When it comes to the theory parts, so these are the problems there. So I think there is no as such theory that we need to understand in history or learn in history.
So, sir, this must be the strength of this optional, if there is no minimum chances of misinterpretation. What do you say?
I do say that this, yeah, this is a good point. Like, sometimes if you have studied, but seriously, this optional paper, in that case, I think the chances are not there. Yeah, sometimes what happens, people or students or aspirants are getting problem when the statement-based questions are coming. But, I think it's not necessary that always you are knowing that who has given the, statement. What is important to understand the meaning of the statement. And I think it's not very tough to understand the meaning of the statement. And if you have comprehended the meaning of the statement, in that case, you can write the answers without referring the name of the person who has actually given the statement. And that hardly matters. That is, once you have prepared this optional paper just for 4 months or 5 months, let us say 6 months, then UPSC evaluators are also not expecting from you that you should know the name of all the scholars or the, the historical personalities as such. So I think these are not the complications in history. So that's the best part. Yeah, that's true.
Okay, fine. Ashutosh, can you just explain for a layman, someone who doesn't know anything about the option of history, some good sources of history books and little brief about the syllabus of this option?
Okay, there are 4 modules in this entire paper: ancient, medieval, modern, world. So I'll go one module wise quickly. In ancient, everything starts from the Stone Ages, Paleolithic age, right up till to about 12th century CE, that is early medieval times. That is the big coverage of ancient India. In all of that, the sources that I used primarily was, of course, R.S. Sharma, old NCERT, quite compulsory. So R.S. Sharma, the old NCERT. I used IGNOU, BA IGNOU. It's a good coverage for the entire stuff. And of course, Upinder Singh. There is no substitute for Upinder Singh for ancient India. It's a brilliant book. And it also covers a part of early medieval India also. For medieval times, we have the 2 NCERTs of Satish Chandra for Delhi Sultanate times and the Mughal times. Then we have BA IGNOU notes for Delhi Sultanate as well as Mughal times. They are also quite good. And the 3rd volume for JL Mehta, which deals with more cultural and other administrative aspects of the Sultanate as well as Mughal times. That much I did for the medieval times. In paper 2, the first module is modern India. It starts with about 18th century till up till post-independent times. The basic is Bipin Chandra's old NCERT. That will create the base for it. Then Shekhar Bandyopadhyay's Plassey to Partition. That's a great book for having it. And I also referred Grover and Grover for some basic facts that are there in that. And for world history, the base that was created for me was by the book by Ranjan Chakrabarti. That's a brilliant book written by him. And Norman and Love for generally First World War and post Cold War and all those stuff. These are the two books that are the defining ones. And apart from this, there are some standard notes that are available in the market. Those can also be referred for some value addition.
Fine, thank you. Piyush sir, what is the right time to start answer writing practice for history optional? Can someone start from the day one itself, or there has to be some substantial portion?
Yeah. I think when it comes to answer writing, I think people should start from the beginning only, right? Because answer writing is such a thing which is not going to improve in just one month or 2 months as such. So once you start reading the content and you start seeing the questions of previous years, from there only you can try. And in fact, if somebody is there to evaluate your script, that's very good. And if somebody is not there, even though after reading one sort of content, and then you try to write something on the same content, right, and then try to evaluate by yourself that what are the things which that you have missed, what would be the best way of presenting this, like try to read your answers by your own and try to understand does it convey the ideas as perfectly or not. So these are the few things that you need to consider, and that's the reason because of what I'll prefer to say. Yes, just go for answer writing from the beginning only, because that is the best part or best time to gain confidence in writing. So you must try from the beginning only, because once you'll start writing, suppose after the pre or once mains is approaching, that times it seems very tough to comprehend the things, the technical things for the answer writing.
Ashutosh, normally aspirant they go for notes making. Fine. In all the subjects we go for notes making. But when it comes to the history, take the example of ancient India or medieval India. Making notes is just like making a Xerox of entire book. So what's your experience in history optional? Is it the same thing in optional also? Or
I don't think so. It's because generally there is a ratio of 1:10. So if a book is of 500 pages, your notes should ideally be about 50 pages. It is possible. You can just use bullet points, crisp sentences. You don't need to expand it in the notes. So it can be very short, and it can be used in bullet points so that it can very well fit in the memory. What I did was that I prepared electronic notes. There is no one book which is totally used for that module. Like even for ancient, I have to refer 3 books. For almost every module, I have to have 2 to 3 books. I cannot underline in every book, and just before the exams, I'll have a heap of books, and I'll just waste my time turning pages. So as typical as an engineer, it is inefficient function. There's too much of input and hardly any output. So the best part is to have notes. I preferred electronic notes because I could sync them on my mobile, tab, laptop, everywhere, because they are stored on the cloud. They can be edited very easily and they can be carried easily, because mainly people travel for the mains somewhere in Mumbai, Delhi, or any other place. They have to carry so many books with them for revision. Electronic notes are the easiest to carry. What I did for notes writing was the basic concept. If the point is there in the syllabus, there is basic concept, then the main description, the facts related to it, the contrary points to it, because examination is always about critically examine or something of that sort. And as Piyush sir said, historiography. What are the historians' views in that? Many a times you will find that while writing answers, it is these quotes by historiography historians that can actually serve as a great introduction to the answer. So I generally have such kind of things prepared in my notes. So it is very good. For example, like I prepared a note for Upanishads in ancient India. Now I know for sure that there is a quote by Swami Vivekananda which says that Upanishads are the Bibles of ancient India, and that is where the entire enlightenment comes from. I can just start my answer with that in any paper. It's just totally relevant when the question on Upanishads comes. So while preparing notes, think from as if it's your answer. So if the question comes, your brain should directly go to that notes and it should tell you, okay, these are the 4 points that you have noted down, start writing. Because as it is, you don't have time. So it should happen. It's like a mechanical process that, okay, this is my note and this is what was asked. Let's start. So prepare notes in that way. It is possible to shrink the notes. It is very much possible to have crisp notes, and the candidate should, I personally say that should have electronic notes.
Fine. Piyush sir, if you see the optional subject or the entire syllabus of UPSC, then we find some portions as static, some portions as dynamic. So do we have the same thing in history optional, dynamic plus static?
Well, I won't say that, the history is very dynamic like the other papers. The way current somehow gives, inputs in the other optional papers. In that way, you won't find any kind of input of current in the, optional paper. But yes, one thing that is pretty sure that every discipline that we have been learning, right, there is some utility of the subjects in the current times. So when you have been reading history, there must be some utility, right? So that's the reason because of what almost all every university includes this particular discipline in their curriculum. So the reason is that you should have the sense of linking the things that you have been learning for past with the current also, right? So it's not necessary that they have linked it, but suppose, Asutosh was saying there's something, for Upanishad, he read something that was given by, that statement was given by Swami Vivekanand. So look, Upanishad has been now linked to Swami Vivekanand, right? Though there is some more deep connection between these two, it's about Vedantic philosophy and all. But even though, if like suppose what I suggest to the students, suppose you are writing any answer on social reformation movement in modern India. So if you cannot understand or you cannot link the social reformation movement somewhere in 19th century to the condition of women right now, in that case, I think you are not somehow doing the justice with the paper. So that idea should always be there in your mind that, yeah, what is the utility of the subject, that whenever you have the possibility to link it with the current, right, always go for that. So in that way, we can say it's still, you can connect the past with the present, and that is the best way of, expressing yourself. So that is that's the, thing that you should keep in mind. And that shows that how much, understanding or what kind of understanding you have actually grasped for the subject. So that's a very beautiful part of history.
Fine. Ashutosh, how many tests are sufficient in part of test series for this history option?
I say you should be writing per module. If there's a module, maybe a test for ancient, test for medieval, there should be at least 2 papers you have to write per module. And for full portion, there should be at least 4 full portion tests that you should be giving. So that should be the will give you a good feel, a good hang about what the paper is.
Okay. Ashutosh, is there any scope of diagram, pictures, and all in history optional? What's your experience in that?
Too much scope, because what happens is in history we just go on writing, and then that examiner also, we have to think from his psychology. He's just reading one paper after the other. So rather than writing 10 things, if I just show it in one diagram, which will also require less space, but it will be a refreshing thing for him. I'm not saying that every answer should have a diagram, but a refreshing stuff for him, that okay, this is something different that I'm seeing. Now, supposedly a question is asked about, tell us about the concept of a kingdom in Chanakya's Arthashastra. Now I'll just say, okay, there is Saptanga Rajya, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'll just have the king in between, 6 arrows. Okay, these are the 6 components with Chanakya. End. I have not even mentioned anything, just words, 6, 7 words. But in simple diagram, that examiner will get refreshed that, okay, he understands at a glance that this candidate knows what he's writing. He has studied well, and he has made the task of the examiner easy. So more easier the task of examiner, more easier he will give you out marks from his kitty.
Fine. Ashutosh, we have covered almost all the questions from history option. Would you like to say something apart from this?
I personally feel that whenever I also had made so many friends who are giving optional, we checked, we compared papers. The difference main is that everybody writes average answers. The point is, from where do we differentiate an average answer with a good answer? And that is where the entire problem starts. The problem is that we don't focus on facts. In ancient and medieval, there are 4 sources: archaeology, epigraphy, numismatics, and literature. There are so many facts around, but we don't quote with facts. We just say that Ashoka ran welfare state. It's correct. Galat kuch nahi hai isme. They will give you marks, but they will give you average marks. But the moment I say that yes, the major rock edited Granar, Ashoka says, Sabba Puja Mama Putte, all people are my children, and hence his was a welfare state. The examiner has very little scope of cutting marks because he knows that you know what you're writing. History works on facts. Analysis comes later. Even in modern and world, nobody's going to ask you whether the event happened or not. But there, the event actually, there are so many events happening. There are so many views of historians. Those facts should be coming there. Or if I only say that, okay, civil disobedience movement was a big movement, a bland statement. But if I say that it was Bombay Chronicle who published its newspaper on 12th of March 1930, said that Dandi March is by far the biggest public uprising after 1857. Now you are conveying what you want to say. Now that examiner knows that you know that you have read it well. So facts is the basis of everything in history. that is what is going to differentiate a normal answer with a great answer. The examiner can't stop giving you 12.5 marks out of 20 if you are writing such stuff.
Fine, fine. Piyush sir, one more question to you. We have seen that nowadays lot of controversies are going on there. Like people are saying that with the change of government, history changes or the interpretation of history changes. So an UPSC aspirant, should he keep these things in mind like liberal perspective, Marxist perspective, socialist perspective, rightist perspective? What's your advice on that, sir?
Well, from the beginning only, I keep on saying that like there are two things which are very important in history: sources and historians. Okay? So there is no history without sources and historians. Okay? So there is no sense of history without these two things. So I think if there are certain changes, like of course you should try to include these things. But in history, what happens, no, the changes like it happens in the other papers in the same way the changes are not happening in history. If suppose any new research is there, any new argument is coming, so that argument is taking at least 6 to 10 years to be part of curriculum or be part of academics, right? So what happens, you are having a kind of gap. So why the book of Upinder Singh? Like everybody has started reading the book of Upinder Singh. Why this book has become so popular? Let me tell you very frankly. Whereas before coming of the book of Professor Upinder Singh, the books which are being used by people, these were written long back, like somewhere in 1970s or something like that. Okay? And these books were not revised also. So of course these books were lacking. They were missing all those recent developments which have taken place. And that is why what happens, like of course if you're reading the recent books like Shekhar Bandyopadhyay, that's the another book has that has become very popular recently. Again, the same thing is true for true for that book. So basically, when it comes to the recent sort of things, of course, the books which are written recently, these have included all these details. So yeah, these are the things that you definitely need to include. But that doesn't mean that any research which has taken place last year or in last 2-3 years, that also you need to include. That's not necessary. If you know about such kind of researches, like I'll just try to give the examples of such as IVC, Indus Valley Civilization. So what happens in Indus Valley Civilization? Regularly the excavations are going on, right? But these excavations are they have not become part of curriculum right now. So when you are concluding your answer, then I know that time you can mention, okay, recently also some researches are going on, and these are the new conclusions which are offered. So this is not part of your body, this is not part of your body, right? Rather, this is how you're concluding your answer. So you are just giving this particular, you are conveying this idea to the, to the evaluators. Okay, this fellow is following the developments, even happening recently also. So that somehow carries a kind of, a good impression for you to the evaluator, right? So when it comes to the trend, like the different kind of historiography, so of course these are mentioned in the book. You don't need to collect it from any other source as such, that you need to go for many articles as such, nothing as such, right? Whatever the books that you have been reading, you will find the historiography there only, and from there you include these things, and there is no need to include as such the things which are happening in last 3-4 years. But yes, you can end your answer if you know it. If you do not know it, that's all.
Okay, thank you, sir. Ashutosh, now some general questions apart from this history option. So students have some questions for you. And this is Anuja from Kerala, fine? So she has basically 3 questions for you. The first is, how much NCERT is important?
It is the most important thing, because in history, timeline is extremely important. It has to fit in my brain that this happened after this. For that, the kind of explanation that NCERTs are giving, it is unmatched. And NCERTs are very important. Skip at your own risk.
Fine. A second is time management in prelims examination. Can you please throw some light?
I generally say a 2 months period for studies critical before prelims. In that, I suggest that the entire revision should happen in 10 days. So there should be 3 cycles of revision, 10 days each. So that will make about 1 month, and 1 month for solving full portion papers. So that is the kind of time management I say. For that, for revision to happen in 10 days, your notes should be ready, or if you're underlining stuff in the books, even that should be ready. So it is very, very critical that you finish up the revision in 10 days. Most people, what they do is they start revising, and by the time they end their revision, prelim is like in the next week, and they have no space left anywhere. So the revision is a critical part, but it should be very quick. 10 days revision schedule, then solve for papers for 4-5 days, then again start a revision, then maybe for 10 days you can solve a paper. Keep it a mixture of these two, and you'll be able to manage your time very well.
Fine, fine. She has another question, that do aspirant need to read the newspaper daily, or they can only rely upon any kind of current affairs magazines or online resources? What's your advice on this?
See, maybe a few years ago, this advice would have been correct that okay, current affair magazines will cover a lot of stuff. But what happens is that in prelims also, many random pieces of information come up, which apparently are not there in any current affairs magazine, but they may have appeared in some newspaper, especially the Hindu. Even for the perspective of me, the daily whatever current affair magazines people refer, they may not give you the perspective that maybe a newspaper article may give you. So for understanding also, for perspective also, newspaper is necessary. Keep it just one exercise every day. You don't need to spend 2-3 hours. Don't read 2-3 newspapers. Either the Indian Express or the Hindu. One newspaper. You should also know which pages to open. No sports page. No random political stuff to be read. It is mainly about read the headline, understand whether this can be asked in the exam or not. Just quickly read it. Note down the things in your notes. Go ahead. So that kind of policy is extremely necessary. What I used to do was I used to study during the day, and when after 10:30 in the night, when the brain's sharpness reduces because you're tired, then I started reading the newspaper. Because in newspaper you have to just consume, you have to do nothing else. So I did not waste my morning creative time, the best peak time of my studies, in reading newspapers. I generally read them at the night.
Okay, fine. Jiva has a question that science and technology, it's a very vague topic. So how should we prepare science and tech?
In science and tech for prelims, I understand that it is a very dicey subject, because in general my suggestion is those 3 modules, polity, economics and geography, are much more predictable than science and tech, environment and history. So I generally suggest for science and tech 2 basic, maybe even 10 standard books where physics, chem and biology are the basics are clear. And for the rest of the stuff, you can always have the current affairs magazine, which will give you a very good head start about what's happening. Even the test papers that you solve, I suggest that solve module papers of science and tech. Many current affairs are you see those current affairs there, you can note them down and you can use them.
Fine, thank you. There is a person called Krishna Pal Yadav. He is basically from Madhya Pradesh. पहले तो उसने आपको एक कविता डेडिकेट किया है, मैं आपको सुनाई देता हूँ. इस नदी की धार से ठंडी हवा आती तो है, नाव जर्जर ही सही लहरों से टकराती तो है, एक चिंगारी कहीं से ढूंढ के लाया दोस्तों, इस दिए में तेल से भींगी हुई बाती तो है. Now his question is that prelims में बस 50 दिन बचे हैं और मुझे इन 50 दिनों में क्या पढ़ना चाहिए और क्या नहीं पढ़ना चाहिए.
Okay, so my suggestion is very clear. हिंदी में ही बोलता हूँ उनके लिए. एक मॉड्यूल एक बुक प्रीलिम्स के लिए, मतलब ये भी वो भी नहीं करना. Lakshmikant for polity, Sriram for economics, maybe Shankarayas for environment, history के लिए spectrum, Nitin Singhania for art and culture, geography के लिए 11th 12th NCERT. One module, one book, clear करके वही वापस पढ़ना है. So उसकी 2 रिवीजन वापस पढ़ना है. Only then the brain will remember stuff. And solve test series at least 15 full portion papers. मैं उसमें ये भी एक बात बोलता हूँ, बहुत सारी टेस्ट सीरीज होती हैं जो ऑल इंडिया मॉक्स होती हैं, या देयर आर मेनी ऑनलाइन टेस्ट सीरीज जहाँ पे रैंकिंग देते हैं वो आपकी. अगर मेरा ये कहना है कि मार्क्स मत रहिए टेस्ट सीरीज के लिए, क्योंकि टेस्ट सीरीज में प्रॉब्लम ये होता है ना कि डिफिकल्टी लेवल वेरी हो जाती है तो मार्क्स भी वेरी हो जाते हैं. तो वो मुझे 50 मार्क्स आना टेस्ट सीरीज में इररेलेवेंट, क्योंकि आई डोंट नो व्हाट्स द डिफिकल्टी लेवल. तो मेरा ये कहना है बी इंसिस्टेंट ऑन द रैंक. अगर 5000 से ज्यादा लोगों ने वो टेस्ट दिया है और आपका 500 के अंडर रैंक आता है, that means you are in a very good strong position to clear that prelims. तो मेरा ये कहना है कि ऐसे टेस्ट सीरीज हैं जहां पे ज्यादा लोग टेस्ट देते हैं और उनमें अगर आप 3 digit रैंक ला पाए, provided 5000 plus people have given those paper, it becomes a very good indicator that you are in the competition. तो अगले 50 दिनों में सिंगुलर रिवीजन, सिंगल सोर्स की रिवीजन और पेपर्स, इतना ही करना है.
Okay, fine. So Ashutosh, we would like to wind up this session. Your last words to the students, and Piyush sir, your last words also.
I guess I'll ask Piyush sir to, he's a senior one.
Your last words to the students.
No, Ashutosh, I think now you are having the legitimacy to speak up the last word, and in fact, it always motivates students, right? So just go for it. There's no problem. Your suggestion matters. So go for it.
Specifically, this is about history optional. I am saying that a healthy 6 to 8 month time should be kept up and study well, reduce the notes, compress the books into 1:10 ratio, have notes, and prepare, ensure that your optional is finished before prelims. Because after prelims, you will be under so much pressure for GS and essay that you will not be able to complete anything of it, and your brain will not accept it. The brain itself is under so much pressure that it will reject any new thing that you are reading. So ensure that before your optional subject is over, the notes are ready, and after the prelims is over, you have only two tasks: revise, write answers, revise, write answers. Minimum 3 times revision. I gave 3 mains, despite knowing that those notes are going to be the same notes, yet I revised those notes 3 times because your brain needs it. History optional is like petrol; it evaporates in time if you don't revise it properly. So there are 3 months for prelims, 1 revision per month. Each revision ensure that your notes are so compressed that you will require 2 days per module. So that is 8 days for optional revision. My notes are so small that 8 days and I'm finishing my revision, and rest I can divert my energies for GS. So 3 revisions before prelims, before mains, and at least 4 full portion papers. That will give you the confidence. The most important stuff for mains is writing speed. You require very good writing speed for completing that paper. For that, your brain should throw the facts when you read that thing. So the moment your eyes set on that question, your brain should flood you with the, okay, this is what we are supposed to write. You have to just pick up your pen, start writing. For that, revision is necessary, and for revision, notes are necessary, and for that notes, your toiling for 6 to 8 months is necessary. So everything is linked properly. So there are no shortcuts to success. There are efforts. Everybody is taking efforts. Some people clear in the first try, some people clear in the fourth try, but everybody is taking efforts. There is no shortcut to success. There is no crash course in UPSC. It is all full-time effort. Do it properly. That's all.
Fine, fine, fine. Thank you, Ashutosh. You, sir, any word or should we wind up?
No, I'll just say one thing. The last words of Ashutosh is perfectly fine. That there is no shortcut for the success, right? The same effort is required. And when people are asking such questions that what should we do right now, of course, put your efforts, right? The sincere hard work and efforts, these are required. Go for it, and everybody can clear UPSC. It's not a big deal as such.
Thank you. Thank you, Ashutosh, for joining us. And from the entire team of GS Score, we wish you all the best for your future. We wish that you become cabinet secretary a day. You get cadre of your choice. And all the best wishes, Ashutosh. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.